Good evening everyone and welcome to Games Talks 22, co-presented by ACMI and RMIT Games. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that tonight's talk is taking place on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and pay respects to any First Nations people within the audience tonight and watching online. And we'd like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. My name is Arieh Offman. I'm a games curator and public programmer here at ACMI, and I would like you to please put your hands together for our two guests for this evening, Julian Wilton and Narayana Johnson. Julian is the creative director and Narayan is the audio director for Massive Monster. Massive Monster is an award-winning indie developer made up of one really big monster and his three pets who help him to achieve his game-making dreams. They maintain a core focus on personality and play, creating worlds in which everything has a story and around every corner is a new adventure. Massive Monster is located in Melbourne, right here, and in the United Kingdom, and they are currently residents at ACMI X, our co-working space. Woo. So, Julian, Orion, thanks so much for taking the time to chat tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Before we get into the meat of tonight, I'd like you to go back in time a little bit. And I want you to tell us about your early experiences with video games. I mean, were they something that you were always passionate about? What were some of your favourites and why did you love them so much? So maybe Narayan, we'll kick off with you.
Yeah, so I remember my bro having an Atari when I was really young. I think my dad was kind of a little bit into consoles himself, and so he kind of bought like all the different ones for us. I have like really early memories of my brother playing Alex the Kid or Alex Kidd. And then like my next kind of very strong memory of video games is going to my friend's house and his brother was playing Donkey Kong Country. And it was just like, graphically, it was just leagues above anything else on the Super Nintendo. And the audio as well is just like incredible. Like David Wise was able to pull so much out of that like simple chipset. And the music really did stick with me. Like I remembered, kind of still remember all the melodies and yeah, it really did have an impact on me. And that was like my first kind of like, oh wow, this is like the coolest thing ever. And then I got a Game Boy Color. That was like my next kind of video game thing. And I had Pokemon and Zelda. And Pokemon actually taught me how to read. Like I was really bad at reading before that, but then like had to like read all the text to get through the missions. And Zelda, Link's Awakening, which is like the music in that is incredible as well. Yeah, so that was like my kind of introduction to video games, but like bit me on the ear, or the bug bit me pretty quickly.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same. Video games definitely helped teach me how to read with those early Sierra Quest games and having to learn to type in those as well. Take me back. Julian, what about you?
Yeah, well, I used to skip the text. Wasn't that interested in reading them. But yeah, back in the day, always kind of interested in games. Kind of my granddad would randomly always buy us like little Sega games that I think he would just buy them off some guy in the pub, and he would always have this like a plastic bag full of them. So like, yeah, we get to like play latest games, and whenever we went over to his place, checking them out. So yeah, always kind of been interested in them and thought, what are these kind of weird things? And yeah, probably got a bit addicted to them in my teenage years, but never really thought about like game development that much. I was just playing them. And I think one day I kind of noticed one of these games I was playing, there was like the source files, and I could kind of like see them all, and if I change a sprite, it would kind of look different in game, and I'd be like, oh my God. So I think that's kind of when I started being like, oh, maybe, maybe I can make games. And yeah, maybe the bug has bit me. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Which kind of leads us on to the next bit, which is you actually started game design, I suppose, relatively early for some people, and began in high school. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about Angry Bees, one of your first games.
Angry Bees, yeah. Well, so yeah, I kind of started getting into Flash games, and I made a few. This one here, yeah, is called Angry Bees. It's, I wouldn't go to say it's a good game, but basically it was this Flash game that we kind of reskinned it off another game, worked on it with this other guy. I did all the art, and I still a big fan of bees. And we kind of put it up on this Flash game license website where we ended up getting like 20 grand for it, US dollars. But I was under 18 at the time. I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. PayPal blocked my account then, so I couldn't even they're like, you're under 18, you can't be earning this much money, apparently. So yeah, it was just like a weird kind of lucrative way into games, where I started making all these Flash games, getting really into this Newgrounds kind of audiences congregate, a lot of this Flash game kind of community that was kind of being put together. That was just very ad hoc and kind of, people just mushing weird ideas together and like shipping them out. So yeah.
Were there any specific deliverables you had for that $20,000 investment? I mean, what was the purpose of that, and what was the outcome that they wanted?
Yeah, so you can see that little mad.com logo. That was yeah, we got a little splash screen. That was the Flash game days. Chuck that in, you get 20 grand. So yeah, that's all we had to do really.
The days of Flash games. Well, look, I mean, I guess going on from high school days, both of you have studied at uni in separate fields. So Narayan first, you've gone on to study music at uni. Did you always plan to study music and pursue it for a career?
Yeah, so I think that I started guitar lessons in maybe year 7 or year 8 of school, like quite early. And I remember that I really enjoyed it pretty quickly and realized that I had like a bit of a knack for it. And a couple of years later, I'd realized this is the thing that I would like to do forever. So as any high school kid thinks, I was like, off to uni. So then, yeah, I was studying at uni, and in my second year, I actually broke my wrist, which led me to because I was studying guitar, so I had to pull out a guitar. I didn't want to defer, so I pulled out a guitar, went into composition, and that's when I really started getting into electronic music. And one of the lecturers kind of took me under his wing a little bit, Andy Downer, and was like, look, you need to get a laptop, you need to get a microphone, you need to get an audio interface and speakers. They were the things he said, that's what you need to get. Got them, and that literally was the beginning of being able to make songs, record vocals. That was kind of the gateway into all of it.
Right, what programs and systems were you using back in those days? Are they similar to what you're using now?
Yeah, so the first DAW that I was using at the time was called Reason. I've actually used them all so I've used what was called Fruity Loops in the day when I was a little kid, because I had a cracked version of it somehow.
Pretty sure everyone did.
now it's called FL Studio, yeah. Yeah, everyone did, hey. But and then I had Reason, and so Reason I took all the way into, I was even using that in my uni days, but then my lecturer was like, look, if you want to record vocals, you kind of need to use something else. So then I got Logic. I used that for years. Released a lot of songs that I made through Logic. But I started using Ableton for live sets because it's the best for that. And eventually, I don't know, I just started, one day I made a song in it, and then eventually I started making more, and I was just like, this is actually my preferred software. So then I swapped, and now I'm an Ableton boy.
And look, it definitely does have that advantage within a live context.
Yeah. And just as far as your tool, there's so many tools and they're so easily disposable. You can so quickly pitch shift one bit of audio, and it's very for electronic music, I feel like it is quite strong. Whereas Logic is a midway between, it's quite good at electronic music and quite good at recording. yeah, Ableton like veers more towards the electronic side of things.
Great. Julian, over to you. Look, what specifically drew you to game design as a career? Was it always a plan? And look, how did your days at uni help to establish you in the career you're in now?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, I was making these weird Flash games. It was kind of working out well. But then, Flash games are dying, and I'm like, is this something where I can actually turn it into a career or whatever? And I saw a lot of game kind of universities and stuff around, and the way they kind of marketed themselves, I feel like it wasn't really for me, because they're like, oh, do you want to be a gamer and kind of earn money? So I was like, I don't know. I like doing art though, so I was like, maybe I'll do a design degree. And I started doing a design degree, and I think I really like that process of design, because it's all about kind of how you communicate kind of ideas and stuff like that. So I think kind of all that kind of university practice has helped my game stuff like a lot, just because it's putting it in a different context. And if you kind of learn how to do something the same way everyone else does, then you might kind of make similar things maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I think it helped me. You had to do the deadlines. So, put that professionalness into me a little bit, although most of them were late. So I don't know.
And look, has the design directions that you took earlier, has that helped to shape your art direction that you're working currently now, and the processes that you go through?
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come back to, as I was saying, kind of this communication. So like trying to just make it clear what the thing is, and even like someone can see a screenshot of a game and kind of hopefully have an understanding of like what that is. I think that's something I kind of took when I was doing Unicycle Giraffe, which we'll kind of talk about later. But kind of, yeah, giving it these kind of design principles and attaching them into kind of doing game art. Yeah.
Great. Before we get onto Unicycle Giraffe though, let's have a little bit of a chat about your final year project, which a lot of people here might know. A little game called Adventure Pals. Take us through that process. Where did the idea come from and end up in our hands?
Yeah, so the Adventure Pals, I was actually doing it while I was at uni. It wasn't part of uni, but I was kind of finishing off, and I finished it as I was finishing uni. And that kind of came about, we did a Flash game called like Super Adventure Pals like years and years ago. And that again was like our most popular kind of Flash game we made. It was kind of myself and another developer, Jay Armstrong, put it together. People were loving it. We're like, yes. It was like this game about just basically having a pet giraffe and being a little platformer. We didn't really know what else beside that. But yeah, we just kept at it while I was at uni. I'd be working on little bits. It took like 4 or 5 years just because it was such a slow process. But yeah, we put it out there, and it ended up doing like pretty well somehow. I think good timing or something, and just we got there in the end, and yeah, did pretty well. So.
All right, well, let's take a little bit of a look at the Adventure Pals.
It's been a while. God, that's a bit of a weird game. I don't know. I would say I actually haven't really looked at it much since we released it. Like, we never really did any updates on it, so.
Takes you back?
Yeah, it takes me back, yeah.
Well, look, as Julian mentioned before, the next game we're going to talk about is Unicycle Giraffe, because it is the first game that Narayan and Julian collaborated on. So, Julian, do you want to take us through basically your design process. I want to know from the initial idea through the iterations. We're going to take a look at how the game has evolved while you talk us through it.
Yeah. So this one actually was part of my kind of final year at uni. I was exploring a bunch of weird things. I was trying to learn how to program. So, you know, this is an example. I had no idea what I was doing, but this was kind of made in this like stencil program. And I was also trying out a bunch of like hardware things, like playing with Arduinos and kind of sensors and trying to like do stuff. And, you know, just use giraffes because I don't know why, but I just love giraffes. And I always thought it'd be great to have like a floopy neck giraffe. Like, yeah, here we go. It's just, I don't know, it just works nice. So yeah, I kind of worked on that for a while. Originally it was meant to be giraffe skateboarding because I just thought that sounds awesome. Like just imagine me a giraffe on a skateboard. But I couldn't program, so, you know, it's just not going well. And then I think I moved on to kind of trying to make it walk or something. This was like basically what I was doing was using physics a lot because you don't have to program anything if you're using physics. So yeah, I started this idea, maybe you're a giraffe, you walk in, you know, get rid of the skateboard, it's too complicated, I can't figure out how to make it work, to make it walk. And then, yeah, here we go. Whee! Love him. So, you know, I kept at it, you know, I was like, you know, I kind of sucked at programming, but I moved to Unity. I was using Playmaker, kind of playing around, like, I thought the giraffe neck physics were the most important part. So I got those down. And then, yeah, I thought, you know, can I bring back the skateboarding? Maybe I'll just put it on one wheel. And then, boom, you've got a unicycle, a giraffe on a unicycle. But yeah, you know, I started developing it more and had a little prototype. And yeah, I kind of thought, oh, I need some bloody music for this. What am I going to do? But yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, we go. Boom. You know, this is some top quality content, yeah.
And we'll start to see like the background art like develop as we watch through the next few slides. Do you want to talk us through really the concept for that? Like what is with the background? What is with the little guys waving this on?
Well, yeah, I mean, originally I was like, all right, I just need to get something working first and make it clear. So like, I'll get the giraffe looking good. And then from there, I thought, you know, I really want to like, it was for my design degree. So I'm like, I actually have to make this look good and it has to like communicate well. So the basics, you can kind of see them here, you're kind of busking for these like little dudes in a forest. And they're just, you know, they're loving it. So like, you know, if you're kind of doing well, they'll kind of give you coins, which you have to like tap and pop and they'll kind of come to you. But if you kind of suck, they all get like angry at you. So, you know, this again, like, it's not really, this is my first kind of time properly trying to program a game. So it was kind of a bit, you know, crap, but you know, it came together and it looked good in the end, which was kind of what I was most concerned about. And you can kind of see here, we've got all the, you know, we've got the effects in now, we've got, you know, everything looking nice. But again, we wanted the focus on the giraffe, you know, it's all about him. I think this is a little development. Yeah, so you kind of mock it up with some, quick sketch and then chuck it all in Unity. And it was great using Unity for the first time as well, because even just simple things like putting things in 3D space with a bit of perspective, you move the camera around and you're like, whoa, it like really brings your art like alive. And I think that really helped in my kind of grad show, kind of having this very animated thing that was quite dynamic where like, yeah, a lot of other people just had a static kind of image. So yeah.
Well, look, this is the first game that you both collaborated on together. I'd like to know a little bit about your processes for collaborating. Like, how does it work between the art style, developing the music, and how do you work together as a team?
Yeah, so Julian had sent me a bunch of, I think you'd sent me some pictures and some videos and stuff. We actually caught up at Bar SK. I remember.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time we met in person. And you would show, you had it on a laptop and we're like, oh yeah, this is the kind of the game. And I had a little like mess around with it. And then you kind of sent me a brief about like, that it's like a kind of about this like, you know, trying to keep doing something, even if you fail at it, like just getting up and trying again, kind of was part of the brief.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. And I try to kind of take those things on board. And then, you know, when you see the art style, it's like very, kind of like, it's very, like it has such a flavor to it that I was trying to kind of match with my, that I would try to match with the audio.
Yeah.
Right, well, look, let's take a little listen to some of the music from Unicycle Giraffe.
Sure about the flute.
That's great. If we could bring it down a little bit, please. Great, so we talked a bit about the art style and how that's influenced your choices in the music. But I want to know about the musical influences. What were you into at the time and how has that shaped what we hear now?
Yeah, so I think initially seeing it, I had kind of thought, all right, this is like, it's kind of set in a jungle or a forest. I always, like, for some reason, I always think of like marimbas and kind of like short, kind of cute instruments would match Julian's style. And the flute, so I play Bansuri flute, which is like a bamboo flute. And I'm not like that good, but what I can do, I'm good at editing things. So I like play a bunch and then I can edit it up and make like a bunch of cool phrases. And then I took those phrases and I put them into like a sampler so I can play them back like on a finger drum. And basically I just like pitch shift them to the right key and just like jammed until something worked. And you can hear like the way the flute like bends up, it goes like no flute can like a Bansuri flute can't actually do that.
I thought that was
so that's kind of you know, like computer editing.
I remember I specifically as well, once I heard the flute, I was like, we need it. Like, the flute was so good. And I saw Narayan play, because originally the way we hooked up was, I used to go to Narayan's gigs, and I saw him there he was doing music under Willow Beats, and he was just like jamming out on this flute, and I was like, oh my gosh. And we kind of just like somehow got together through Twitter, a DM, when Narayan looked at my profile and thought, this looks kind of nerdy, like a game developer. And then, you know, saw that I was a game developer, and then, hit me up. He's like, yo, do you make games?
Yeah, I think I was like, do you make games? I love games. And then it was literally Julian's like, oh, I like your music, let's do something.
I've always wanted to like bring in that more kind of like, I don't know, more commercial like music into kind of games. I mean, not commercial music. I don't know the right term for it.
I think you mean commercial. You mean like music that you listen to? Radio music,
just regular music. I don't know. I don't really listen to game music that much. I listen to a lot of a lot of different stuff. So I'd like to work with people that make this music but bring it into games. I was very excited to get Narayan on. Basically, I was like, the pitch for this, because like it really had no funding and it was just me trying to figure out how to make it work. So like I didn't really have much of a budget for it or anything. I was just like, oh, dude, can you just do one track on this? Like put the minimum amount of time into it. Because, you know, I didn't want to take up too much time as well, because I was like, it's probably not going to be a big hit or anything, but you know, I'd love to get some music into it. So yeah.
Yeah, and then this is the only track that I think I like made specifically for it. And I just wanted to make something that like was like really fun to listen to, kind of made like a little bit addictive. I always try and like make music that I feel like you kind of want to hear more of, in a sense.
Still a banger, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of, thank you. So I wanted like kind of punchy, fun drums, like big drums, but like just like really fun and something to match the art style. And then there's some other tracks I think I just sent you that I just had lying on a hard drive.
Yeah, they're also good. I was like, yeah, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that.
Yeah, so there's like a couple of tracks in the game, actually.
Great. Well, let's move on from Unicycle Giraffe to the eagerly anticipated one, Cult of the Lamb, which is due out, in a couple of months now, is it?
Yeah, August 11th, yeah.
Excited for it. But before we get to its release, let's go back to the start. Where did the idea come from and how that came about?
Yeah. So originally, it kind of came together through Jay, who I was talking about before. He kind of had this prototype where you're kind of this dude, you kind of had a base kind of going, and then you had like dungeon crawling. It was basically just gluing that kind of idea together, like a kind of base builder and dungeon crawler. Really rough, and you had a little colony and stuff. And I thought, really like it, but like, what can we do to actually turn this into something more themed, turn it into like an actual game? It was just a long iteration process of trying out ideas. Like we tried out a bunch of ideas. One, which was this hell idea, which we went through a lot of different main characters as well. I like this guy because he was kind of based off our logo, the little massive monster. But you're kind of like this demon and you're starting your own hell. So we thought, maybe you go out and you kind of, you find people to bring back your hell and then you have to like punish them. But, punishing, you had all these little fellas, but like punishing them felt kind of mean. And we're like, because like everything ended up a little cute and like, not that we're trying to do it, but everything just does anyway when we do it. So we thought, we want to look after him, but I was trying out a lot of different styles as well, trying more like limited color palette and, just to make a distinct art style and trying out this kind of weird 3D environment, which I think, again, it kind of comes back from the Unicycle Giraffe thing, playing around with perspective and you're like, oh, it all moves. I don't have to do anything. It's great. So Yeah.
Did many people get to see this version of the game at the time?
No, no one. Yeah, didn't show it to anyone. So yeah.
So this is your
There's
first
not much
look.
going on in this GIF, but
Well, I mean, before we move on past the Hell Times, I know that you are working on some music specifically for this. So let's take a little bit of a listen to one of the Hell tracks. Thanks. If we could just bring that down. Very spooky.
yeah, definitely. It's got a much more eerie vibe, actually.
Yeah. So look, talk us through like the vibe and the ideas you had for the music direction at this time, and like what were some of the influences that you brought into that?
Yeah, so I think that as far as influences, I think it was a lot of just talking to the team. But yeah, my own kind of, what I wanted to bring to it was I wanted it to be quite eerie and like a little bit lonely and scary and a little sad. Which is kind of like, my music tends to feel that way a little bit anyway, like the stuff that I just make on my own time. So I was like, this is perfect. So yeah, something like eerie, something sad, something spooky. But I think a lot of the feedback that I kept getting was like, oh, like, it should feel like there's a lot like going on in the bass. Like it should feel like there's a lot more stuff happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I think after that feedback, one of the tracks you made was like getting things done.
Yeah.
Like even with this, like on this version, Narayana would be like, oh yeah, I'm thinking like this, and he just sent like 5 different tracks through, which are kind of similar, but he's changed it up each one a lot, and we're just like, what the hell? Like he was just throwing so much content at us, and we're like, oh my god, I don't know if he was trying to impress us or what, but we're like,
I probably would. I was, I reckon.
You're like, yeah, this is great. So, but yeah, I don't think I'm not sure how many of them are used still. I think a lot of the helly ones maybe aren't anymore, which is a bit sad. But
a lot of the stuff we did against, like it was kind of like someone would make a new space in the game and they'd be like, we got this new space, like do you have something lying around that might work in it? And I'll be like, oh, I've got this, this and this, and then one thing might work. Like I'm always happy to make more stuff, but it's cool if I've got something that's already kind of almost there. Yeah, so a lot actually of the early things that I didn't think were going to make it in snuck their way in somewhere else.
We got a lot of ideas. Like we'll scrap ideas, and then like if we can bring them back later, like it's always a good feeling because we're like, oh, we have all the assets ready to go, and now it kind of makes sense. We have all these other systems in place for it to kind of make sense.
Well, I mean, talking about scrapped ideas, we're going to take a look at another early iteration or another version.
So yeah, this one was like you're on the back of a flying whale. I think you're kicked out of like God Heaven because you didn't have enough followers, so you kind of had to go, or worshippers, so you had to go get some more. I didn't pick the music on this either, so don't.
I didn't make this music. I mean, it's cool. Well,
it definitely is a bit of a different vibe to the Narayan style soundtracks that we're used to.
I mean, it's kind of a vibe. You should have went with these guys.
So yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Well, do you like the idea of giant flying space whales?
Well, you know, someone else shortly after we kind of ditched this idea announced their game, which is like you're on the back of this big giant beast that's walking. I think Wandering Village or something it's called, but and it's doing pretty well. Like it was beating us in wishlist for a while, so we were kind of like. But now we beat him, so yeah, take that.
What ideas did you take from this, though, that we can still find in the final game?
I think, so this one, I think it was called like Lost Rituals or something, and it was about, again, doing these like rituals and kind of gaining worshippers and kind of almost being a god, kind of having this level of power over kind of like a little community. Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely stayed, and kind of, you know, what you do with that power, that idea. And then, yeah, just the basic gameplay loop, but everything else, you know, see you later.
Yeah, which I suppose I'm going to throw another question in here for you, because like I really like this thing we were talking about the other day to do with your philosophy of subtractive design. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk through a bit about how that works for you and why you think it's important?
Yeah, so I mean, as you saw from that trailer, like there was a lot of ideas going on there. I think that was part of the problem. It was kind of like, all right, how do we actually tell people about this game? What is it about? Like, oh yeah, you're this god and you're on the back of a flying whale and you got to get followers, and then it's too much going on. So like a lot of the process was like almost trying to just, how do we sell this game before we even get into like properly making it? So kind of like, how can we explain this to someone and they can kind of understand what it is without us explaining it too much. So I think that was, what is the core of this game? The base building, dungeon crawling, and kind of the followers. And the followers kind of really became the glue that kind of put both these parts together. So at the core of the game, we kind of strip back everything else and just try to keep it to those three elements, kind of the mush genres and then these followers. And yeah, we tried out lots of different ideas, like really complicated ones, and like a lot of it just kind of we scrapped and just went with really dumb ideas, like you just fill up a progress bar and then you get like an upgrade. But like a lot of these, there's these systems that they don't need to be fancy. They just need to do their job basically, in these like deeper systems we have. So yeah, just keep it simple, but it's design it how you want to design it, and then see what you can scrap. I think see what's not working. Yeah.
Right. And look, funding is a really important part of being able to continue to develop and to release your game.
Yeah,
so we're going to give people a sneak peek at the video you made for Screen Vic, with which you received development funding.
Well, yeah. Where are those tracks gone? I haven't heard them for a while.
Yeah. Don't think they made the cut.
But yeah, that was. We used that to basically. We kind of had the demo going a bit, and we wanted to go to publishers, but like it was a bit early, so we thought if we can get a bit of funding from FilmVic, I think we got like 40K or something, just to polish all that up, get it really clean. Yeah, It just gave us like another 3 months to really polish it up, and it ended up getting us a deal with the main publisher we wanted. So it worked out great. And you can see like a lot of the core of the game is still there, even though it looks very different. Like a lot of the find followers, build a base, fight dudes. It's all there. So yeah.
Take us through the process of applying for funding. Have you got any hot tips for people? Was it difficult for you? What would you suggest for people if they wanted to apply?
I think you really have to, invest in the pitch. Like you are really selling the idea. So again, just making it clear what it is you're selling, and kind of like what's the opportunity for someone. Even if it is Screen Victoria, there's always like an opportunity for them or a publisher. Like why would they want this? And especially for us, when we were kind of making this, we kind of had in the back of our mind maybe a few publishers that would work well, and we kind of thought, if we do steer it a bit more this direction, then someone like Devolver might be a really good match for us. So kind of just thinking about who your audience is when you're making the game, not just the players, but like who's going to actually give you money to make it. I think that's my hot tips. Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting insight. So, I mean, in talking, you said that you had a couple of key publishers in mind while you were beginning to develop the game. And has that helped to shape what the game now looks like, the way the characters look, the way they play?
Yeah, well, I mean, the way the characters look is always like, I'm just lazy. I'll just draw it how I want to draw it. But I think, definitely, Devolver, for example, they're a bit punk. They're a bit, a bit on the edge, or so like trying to make something that matches that a little bit, I think was important.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I guess occult management sim and a dungeon crawler definitely falls in the Devolver wheelhouse.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, you know, just even looking at their past games, you know, they had the dungeon crawlers that have done really well. So not even thinking about the theme of it, but even just like the market position of where that fits in. Finding, you know, publishers that have done similar games, I think works really well. Not even just in theme, but like mechanics and kind of what's worked well for them.
Hot tip, find the right publisher.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the music, all right? Before we do, let's have a little listen to one of the tracks that we from Cult of the Lamb. Thanks, guys. So look, obviously the music's shifted quite a bit from that early Hell stage that we heard before. So I want you to talk firstly a little bit about this piece of music and then the kind of two halves of the music that you've created for the game.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a piece of music that plays in the bass, and this was a lot of that feedback was coming in. That was like, oh, it should feel like there's a lot going on. There's
done.
Yeah, things. Yeah.
I think that's what the track's called.
It might be called Getting Things Done. Yeah, yeah, like stuff's happening. Like people are like cooking, people are building. Like there's a little village kind of up there, and yeah, with the music of the game, I'm experimenting a lot with vocal parts. So I kind of thought like cults, chanting, kind of like spells. Like the vocal is already an incredible instrument, and I thought that it could play a really important part in this game. But I wanted to like mangle it, like I wanted to do interesting things with it. So like you can hear that like like I'm kind of like, you know, using some interesting like gating effects that's like chopping it really short and letting me be able to like make rhythms out of like what would be a choir.
Yeah, I didn't think of them as a choir actually. Yeah, because there is a track where like wah 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 wah, like they're almost singing. I always had in the back of my mind like this kind of sounds like they're singing, and I always wanted to like sneak in like their mouths opening when the like the bits play. But yeah, I haven't got time around to it yet. But you know, maybe for launch I'll sneak it in.
That'd be cool.
Sorry, Jay, but yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to, and it feels like. Yeah, you can kind of hear the stuff happening, and it's also like it's almost like a little bit of on the nose. It like sounds like it's like almost comes from like a Disney cartoon, or it's like Cinderella singing or something. But like, you know, you're running a cult and like you go into your temple and sacrifice someone. So it's like a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit of a like, I don't know how you'd explain it, on the nose a little bit. It's like too happy and gleeful. It's like the kind of like the like media facing side of a cult, or like the way they'd want to like present themselves.
True.
The scary, cheery faces.
Yeah. So yeah, it has that kind of feeling as well. It's like something's not quite right. It's a little bit too bubbly.
And of course, in the clip we saw before, you kind of heard that deep bass music. Of course, which that track isn't currently there, but tell us about the other kinds of music that you're going to hear throughout the game. And
yeah. So in the bass, everything is kind of like, it's a little bit like lo-fi hip hop inspired as well. I wanted it to be like something that you'd listen to, like, you know, those like lo-fi hip hop playlists to like study to.
Very well.
That's yeah. So it's kind of like there's just all this music that plays while you're going about your business, and it's kind of like enhances the mood, like lo-fi hip hop does. But the stuff when you're like when you're dungeon crawling and you're like fighting other cult members, it's very different. It's like a lot scarier. It's a lot more energetic. When I was kind of making that music, I had this kind of idea in the back of my head of like, what would like kids or like people that are kind of into the occult want to listen to, if that makes sense? I had this idea in my head. I'm like, okay, what would like culty people, not culty, but what would like Wicca people or witchy people like be into? And that was kind of like in the back of my mind all the time. Like I want to make something that they would think was dope. So yeah, a lot of it's like scary and big spooky basses and scary vocals being manipulated, but then it's like kind of like with a hip hop feel underneath, because like hip hop is like the music of today, and that's what
doesn't feel like tropey of like, I don't know, if you look at some horror games, like, you know, they might just grab some generic kind of horror sounds
Yeah.
and like use a lot of tropes. But I feel like, yeah, we've got a really interesting palette just through a lot of these techniques, I think, of, yeah, the vocals and kind of a few of these instruments that kind of follow through.
Yeah.
Great, and that almost brings us up to release. And can you let our audience know the release date for Cult of Lamb?
Yes, August 11th. I mean, yeah, it's public. It's coming up. Stressing me out a little bit, but yeah, we'll be there hopefully. Yeah, you can pre-order it now. It's on Steam. You can get little Cthulhu skin if you pre-order it. There's like a deluxe pack. We got it all.
Love the Cthulhu skin. So just to make sure that you go out, wish list it or pre-order it today, let's take a look at the Cult of the Lamb console trailer.
Love it.
Awesome.
Shout out to Half Giant who did all our animation stuff on it. Yeah.
There is beautiful animation.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah, and they even did that. In the Lamb, he's kind of in the pentagram stuff. We hired them originally for the original Screen Vic. When we got that money, we kind of gave them a bit of money to help us pitch that to publishers. And I think even just having that little animated bit like really helped sell it. So yeah.
Definitely. All right, well, over to the audience. Do we have any questions for Julian and Orion? We do have a microphone coming around because we are live streaming. We want people to hear your questions. Love the awkward, shy first 20 seconds while everyone waits for someone else to be the first to put their hand up.
I'll just say as well, thank you all for coming and listening online, honestly. Very much appreciated. Oh, yes.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Jade here,
Hi.
number one fan.
Hey,
Love
Jade.
Cult of the Lamb. Can't wait for it to be released. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how you... I guess you've kind of covered it a bit, but if you could go a bit more into, like, what inspired you to actually, I guess, make the game about animals in particular? Like, what was behind that? Cults are normally humans.
Yeah, great. Great question. Thank you, Jade.
Thank you very much, Julian.
Lovely. That's my partner, so I love it. You gotta, support a partner. Yeah, honestly, the animals, for us, just an easy decision. I mean, I've always, if you've seen my other games, I always love using animals. They're just like a great kind of generic way to kind of, you don't need any genders in them. They can be a bunch of different colors. They can kind of be creative. They can be cute. So yeah, it came back to a lot of that kind of thing. We didn't, because we started off with like human followers, and they just kind of looked a bit weird. Maybe it's because I just can't draw like human people very well, but like I can draw animals pretty well, or at least kind of like simplified animals. So yeah, we thought that'd be really good. We don't need any genders. We can keep it generic. You can kind of assert your own kind of gender on them if you want, and yeah, keeps it nice and easy. Yeah.
Good question.
I was wondering, how does, students here, all of us, so we're wondering, once university is finished and you have to worry about not starving to death, how do you, get from the point of like you start making games and you have an understanding of how to do it, but you have to, do that when you're, I don't know, on the side like you were doing while you're doing university. How do you, survive?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And honestly, like, I feel like if you come into these events and try and connect with the community and stuff like that, it's a really good way to kind of start getting into it. I think definitely, I mean, in Victoria, we're very blessed because we have like Scream Victoria and stuff like that. Like, obviously it does, it is, I feel, becoming a bit more, like, there's a bit more competition out there, but there is like, there's a lot of grants basically, a lot of money out there for that type of thing. What I did personally was I did this thing called like NEIS, which is like New Enterprise Incentive Scheme, which meant that you could basically get Centrelink for like 9 months to kind of help you start your business. It's a bit hard to kind of like do it for games because it comes from very kind of traditional model where they're like, oh, you need income every month from different sources. But if you can swing it through some means, I found that really useful. And yeah, also just trying to, I guess, get that experience. Like maybe you can do internships, like some paid internships, good way to get your foot in while you're kind of working on the side stuff as well. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
No, it can be tough. Like working in the arts, I feel like is like,
yeah,
making money is like super difficult. And sometimes, like I was in a group called Willow Beats. We were kind of touring and like more of a radio kind of band, or like, yeah, pop music, I guess you'd call it. And we were like making just enough to like survive. And then we like decided to stop doing that. And I was like working as like a school crossing guy for like, to like make ends meet for ages. And then started working with Julian. I was still doing that for ages. And then eventually like Cult of the Lamb was like, I was working enough on that.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. You kind of just need to, like, if you can, just keep working on it and finding other people that may be in a similar situation but do have skills that you can kind of partner up with, get a little pitch together, get a little demo going, pitch it out to, Screen Victoria, you can pitch it out to publishers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, you learn a lot in the process as well. So you gotta, go over a few hurdles to kind of get through it. But you'll get there. Love it. Yeah, go on.
You've got a question from YouTube.
Oh, YouTube.
Yes, I'll tell you what, do you want to like let the question here and then you can feed it to me? We'll ask that one.
Yeah, awesome. Jax, have I got you? Alex?
Let's do our question in the audience first and then feed down the YouTube question.
Sorry.
No, all good.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Sophie. Hello.
Hey.
Very honored to be here. I'm a high school teacher. I teach game design, and
awesome.
I'm really curious. I'm so excited. I'm really curious how you teach yourself, how you got into Unity. So how, like, I assume you taught yourself, right? And how, just what tips you can give for the high school students. And also, I'm forming a club at like a game design school. So what sort of people like, can you work by yourself or how do you collaborate between, different like programmers, animators, game asset makers, and or people who produce music? So I'm really curious, how do you collaborate? First is the tips for high school students to get into Unity.
Love it. Well, I mean, for me, I guess my journey was kind of like, really just starting out in easier programs because like Unity is great, but it is a bit like when you first open it up, you're like, what the hell is going on? Because especially if you don't know much programming, stuff like that, you're like, so there's a lot going on. So my kind of pathway was using some other tools that are a bit simpler. I was using one called Stencil, which is kind of drag and drop kind of coding that's based on MIT Scratch kind of thing. So definitely starting out in those type of things. You can even start out in like some games. Like I know Roblox, they're trying to pitch, like they're trying to push this kind of, I don't think, they're not very ethical, but like, you know, kind of pushing this idea of like, you know, you can kind of make games in this kind of really accessible way. Because I think it's that idea of kind of, you know, you got to plant the bug so they can see it on their own and kind of start doing it. That's what I'd say for that one. In terms of collaborating, like, yeah, as you probably know, like games are very difficult to make. They're just a pain. So like, I think there's a lot of different ways they can kind of get into it. Like, I mean, what happens a lot is like game jams. I don't know, like potentially doing something like that might be a good way to kind of bring these high school students together. There's always going to be some people that are more interested in art, some that are more interested in music or coding and stuff like that. So I think if you can kind of play on that and see what people are interested in, that kind of might work well. I don't know. Any thoughts? Yeah.
No.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Yeah, feel free to like, yeah, grab a card and I'm happy to discuss more if I can help. I don't know.
We've got a question from YouTube. Please.
Wow.
Ginny Maxwell is interested to know if you're worried about the viability of pitching. Oh dear, I've lost it, Jerry.
No.
Thanks, Jenny, for the question. Appreciate that.
She's interested to know if you were worried about the viability of pitching a game with satanic vibes, given the outcry about satanic imagery in media recently.
Yeah, it definitely was when we like started working on it that we were, and especially the hell idea as well. Like how far can we actually push this? Like, on Nintendo, you're gonna put our trailers up on their YouTube channel and stuff like that. I think that was one of the main big concerns. Like, kind of will the platforms help kind of push it? But I think like we did try to steer too much away from being like very like, I don't know, anti-Christian. Like, we don't mention any like religions or anything, and really it's kind of just like a reflection on like religion and a lot of cults in general, rather than trying to be too specific about one thing. We're not saying any religion's wrong, but you know, we explore a lot of ideas in it. But I think what really helps is the cute aspect of it makes people kind of forget about it a bit. And think that, oh, you know, it's fine, it's cute little animals. So I think we've kind of got away with it a bit. And, you know, it does help having like kind of maybe Devolver that would kind of maybe take a bit more of a risk on that. Because I guess like you saw the original kind of pitch video, like it, you know, they probably saw that and were like, oh, this, you know, it could have gone in a few directions, but I think we kind of ended up in a good one. So, yeah.
Right. Got time for one more question. If we have any other questions in the audience, standing at the front.
Kind of leading on from that question a little bit, what type of market research did you do before commencing, and was it suppose certain that it would be a viable thing at the start, or were you just stumbling in the dark, kind of?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it was, I think, like the kind of the mushing the two genres thing. When I saw that, I thought like this is like quite interesting because basically you get to grab two audiences. Like you get to grab the people that like the base builders, the people that like the dungeon crawlers. So when we kind of had that, I started looking into like a lot of the games myself. And trying to see where it does fit in the market, because you know you have things like Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, and then you've got like Enter the Gungeon. A lot of these titles and didn't really fit in anywhere too much with those, which can be a good thing if you don't, you know, can't directly compare yourself. But we kind of took elements from it. So like I think it kind of had, you know, a few of the elements for success with the genre mushing. Roguelikes were really popular, and I think are still kind of pretty popular. I think like from Hades and stuff, like that was the last quite big one. The other thing is it is kind of hard when you start developing, because like they say if you're kind of like going after the trends a bit too much, by the time you actually release the game, those trends can be over. So it is quite like, for example, one of our other games we worked on, Never Give Up. It was like a hardcore platformer, which, you know, would have been great around the time of like Super Meat Boy or something, but like that was a long time ago. So like, you know, audiences just were like, you know, you've already got these other great games that are doing that, so you don't really need anything else. I think the main thing is like, you know, giving people something they kind of know a bit, you know, with these genres, but in a new way. by kind of mushing them together or something. But yeah, I don't know. I really like the kind of marketing side of it and kind of the business side of like trying to come up with ideas. And I got the next one ready to go. So yeah.
And we can't wait to hear about it. Can I get you all to please put your hands together for our guest tonight, Julian Wilton and Orion Johnson.
Oh, wow. Thank you, honestly.
So Games Talks is a monthly talk series that will be running here at ACMI and online until September. And next month, in July, we will be featuring local amazing collective, Fire Pit Collective, and talking about their interactive online artwork, Hyper Echo, hosted by our curator, Jeannie Maxwell. I'm Arieh Offman. Thank you so much for coming along tonight and for tuning in online.
Thanks, woo.
Thanks for coming, everybody.